Should Christians aim to get rich in order to serve the poor? That's what we're talking about today. I am interested in this concept called earning to give, which is exactly about that. John Wesley put it this way: earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can, because money is a tool in the hands of Christians. It is a father to the fatherless, it is a husband to the widow, it is food for the hungry. So, should Christians who are grounded in Christ and mature in faith intentionally pursue a high earning salary in order to give money away and influence wealthy peers? I wanted to talk to someone who does just that. So we brought on Tommy Kumpf. He's a quantitative trader. And we talk about whether Christians should earn to give, what Christians can do to guard themselves against the spiritual dangers of that. And we talked about some of his favorite charities to give to. So don't mind the lower resolution than normal. My audio quality is a bit off, and we had an abrupt ending. But if you want to learn more about this, you can check out our report on earning to give on our website on christiansforimpact.org. Let's jump into it. Tommy, thanks so much for coming on. For those who don't know you, share maybe a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how it is you impact the world.
Yeah. So my name's Tommy. I work as a quantitative trader in Philadelphia at Susquehanna International Group. Yeah, I went to school for computer science, but I've been doing this ever since I graduated in 2020, and I really like it. I think it's great.
Nice. What does your day-to-day look like as a quantitative? Actually, even before that, let me ask this question. Should Christians earn to give?
Yeah. I think what I would say is, I don't think I would give a 100% prescriptive answer in the sense of every Christian all the time should definitely be earning to give, and if you're not taking the highest paying job you can, then you're doing something wrong. But I would say that being able to make money is a gift that God has given certain people, and I'm one of those people. And generally, in our current day and age, just happening to be good at math and quantitative reasoning and probabilistic thinking is a skill that's very lucrative in the financial industry. And so in that sense, I have this gift, and I think for me and my talents and the way that God has built me, the best way for me to, advance God's kingdom, if that's the appropriate language, is by making a lot of money and giving it to those who are explicitly doing things that advance God's kingdom. With my salary, I can support, depending on which organization, anywhere from single digit to tens of ministries that is just wouldn't have the support otherwise. So yeah. I think to the answer, should Christians earn to give, I think that is definitely one viable way to serve God in our careers.
Yeah. Isn't that so crazy that centuries ago, if you're really good at math, maybe, I don't know, maybe you count the sheep or take taxes, you're a tax collector or something, right? And you're despised and hated by the masses. But now, if you're good at math, then you're a data scientist or a quant trader, and you can be nerdy and earn the big bucks.
I've thought the exact same thing, and I've said the exact same thing to my coworkers, because it's also not even that. It's arguable that, I don't know, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, probably AI will do my job better than I will. So I'm just in this sweet spot before AI takes over and after trading is invented as a career. So It's a good spot to be in.
So the people I know in quantitative trading starting is usually around 200,000 ish on the East Coast. I'm not sure, but kind of in that ballpark. And then people who stick with it for a few years are earning $500,000 to a couple million a year. Does that sound about right in terms of broad brush strokes of earning potential?
Yep, I would agree. Except I would say that I think starting salaries are probably higher than that 200 number now. They're probably closer. I don't know exactly, but somewhere in the 300 range probably.
Yeah. So let's take the median person who's in this career path a few years in. Maybe that's $500,000 a year salary. Yeah. And in the US, you can live pretty comfortably on 100,000 or 200,000. So that means what, 300,000 or 400,000 a year in theory you could give away, which is a lot of good, right? So how do you think about the good you could do with $300,000 or $400,000 donated a year?
Yeah, I definitely think I agree with you. I agree that first, I would think the biggest challenge in the earning to give in the financial space, and this is for me personally, I don't know if other people feel it, is that it's very easy to feel generous when the amount of money that you're giving away is a lot in dollars. But let's say I'm making $500,000 and I give away $200,000. That's like a lot of money, but I still have $300,000, which puts me in like the almost certainly like top percent or top 2-3% of America. And so I think one thing is that it's like, one challenge is that I think we should be thinking of giving in terms of what we have left more than like the amount we give in that sense, because what we have left is like the real sacrifice.
Right. It's like
I'm
the
just
widow's
good at
mite.
math and I make a lot of money. So like, should I really have all this money? So that didn't answer your question. But the answer to your question is that there's tons of good. I mean, so recently I've gotten involved in a ministry called 500K, which is built around sending missionaries in India to reach unreached villages. And, they particularly are extremely effective with money in the sense of you can take one missionary and you can fund them for 5 years for only $5,000, which like sounds like it's like an unbelievably low number, $5,000 for 5 years of ministry. And not only that, this person will go like to some amount of churches, some amount of villages, average like 5 villages, and they'll plant a church in like 3 or 5 of them. But the end state is at the end of 5 years, they'll have 3 churches with 10 baptized believers each, which is 30 baptized believers for only $5,000, which is like,
wow.
I mean, that's like what, 130 per person or something? Maybe
sure. And even if you fudge the numbers a bit, you're still talking about like tens, maybe hundreds of times less expensive per baptism, meaningful baptism than in the West, right? Or like to fund a church planter in the US is maybe $50,000 to $100,000 a year per church planter, right? It's like $1,000 a year in rural India.
Yeah. It's like crazy. So then if you, maybe there's a level at which you can get too numeric, but if you do the numbers, if you donate $300,000, that's like, thousands of people saved, which even saying it is crazy. Well, like 1,000 people saved, maybe if it's 300 per person. That's like,
I like to keep some humility. I like to think of it like with some barriers where like, I don't want to count conversion costs or whatever, but I do think there is like a robust output, which is baptism, right? We have this thing, people in rural India getting baptized. It's a meaningful indicator that they might have made a life-changing decision to follow Jesus, especially in a culture where like there's social pressure not to, and there's nobody else who's really Christian in those areas, right? Like, why would you do that unless you really had a life-changing encounter? For those who want to listen to more about 500K, we have a podcast with Ed, which I can include in the link description. Have you been earning to give since you entered finance, or is this something you kind of picked up as you?
Well, I guess it depends on how you define it. When I was in college and I was deciding which career to go into, I thought about finance for 3 reasons. The first reason was that I can make a lot of money and can do good with that money. The second reason was that I was good at it and I enjoyed doing it. And the third reason is that finance is not a particularly Christian sphere, quantitative finance. And so going into this space gives me an opportunity to talk to people who aren't Christian and otherwise have a very different portrayal of Christianity than what I would present to them. And so I think that's a helpful thing.
How do you think about the good you can do as a Christian witness to non-believers in the finance space, directly praying for, inviting people to Bible studies, who are non-Christian, compared to the good you can do through earning to give as someone who earns a lot of money?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to,
both seem important. But I'm curious how you kind of weigh those different things. Yeah.
So one thing that you can do, and so like this is something I'm doing. This is a slightly different, but in 500K, when I was visiting, there was that ministry is of course focused on evangelism, but one of the ministry partners when I visited mentioned that there was some humanitarian thing that they needed some money for. They're hosting a bunch of orphans. It's like, and it's incredible what they're doing, but they're hosting a bunch of orphans and they need a playground for the orphans, but they don't have the money for that because that's not what their ministry is built for. And I, coming back from India, talked to my coworkers and was like, do you guys want to give some money to this playground in India and support these people? And they agreed to it. So that's $2,000, which is not a lot, but the reason I bring it up is my coworkers have a lot of money, and so if you can convince one of them to start donating, then it like multiplies your impact in a great way. So in that sense, there's like you're earning to give, but it would actually be more valuable for me to convert like 2 higher paying coworkers than me than it would be for me to give myself. If you're just looking at dollars and not like discipleship. So that's one thing. But even aside from that, I guess I would agree that I would think they're both important. I think maybe this is overly cynical of me, but from an effectiveness standpoint, I'm certain that the money I'm doing is doing great work, and like that's more effective than I haven't converted anyone at work. Like maybe.
Although you said that you told the story of a miracle that you saw while in India to a coworker. Can you reshare that?
So unfortunately, this guy used to be a coworker of mine. We worked together at SIG a while ago. Now he works at a different trading company, but he was compelled by it. To give the brief version, there was a man whose foot had necrotic flesh on it. It was like all black. I saw a picture of it. It was really gross. This man went to get prayed for by some witch doctors. They didn't heal him. He went to the doctor. They gave him medicine. It didn't work. He heard about a pastor who was in town, and a pastor came, and that the pastor would heal people. And so he is like, okay, I'll go to this pastor. So he met with the pastor, and the pastor laid hands on the guy's foot, and he prayed for it. And he said that the instant the guy prayed, the pain in his foot went away. And then 2 weeks later, it was totally healed. And I saw his foot, and like it has still a scar on it from where the flesh was dead, but it's totally fine. Like it's totally functioning. And so I was saying this to my friend, and I was like, well, it's hard to say because like it was 2 weeks later. Maybe it just would have gotten better anyways.
It was put on my skeptic hat. It was a photo, right? You didn't actually see his like.
Yeah. Right. There, you can always. There's always. It's definitely not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And so I said this, and I was kind of like, because when I present this to non-Christians, I kind of assume they're going to be skeptical, so I'm kind of softening it for them, which maybe I shouldn't do, but that's what I was doing. And then my friend is like, no, I think he actually just experienced a miracle. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. I mean, don't let me stop you if that's what you think happened.
So my pastor says, don't give somebody's no for them, which is how they get hundreds of volunteers for the church. But also apparently how you can share the gospel to people who you think are skeptical. But so I wanted to talk with you a little bit about earning to give, because this is something that we think is a good path for some Christians. At Christians for Impact, we want to have a maximum impact on the world while honoring key commitments and not breaking God's law or lying or cheating to do that. There are definitely ways to like lie, cheat, and steal to accumulate wealth. But then there are also honest ways to accumulate wealth and to steward talents and gifts that God has given you in order to leverage those for serving the least of these. And I think in principle, finance careers can be used for this. So I'd like to address those some dangers, though, some pitfalls potentially. What are some of the dangers you see of this path? It was raised in a discussion I was in lately, some Bible verses warning about trusting too much in wealth. Let me pull some up here, and maybe that can set the tone a bit. I think we're all familiar with what Jesus says about mammon and how you can't serve both God and money, or mammon being the love of money. But then we read in the Proverbs 11:28, it warns against trust in riches, or Proverbs 30. The speaker is asking that God would give him neither poverty nor riches, right? That both would be so distracting. We have, I think this one speaks for earning to give, but you have Jesus calling the rich young ruler to sell all he has and to give to the poor and to follow Jesus. But then we also have Jesus warning against all kinds of greed, be on guard against all kinds of greed. In Luke 12, he talks about that. One of the most interesting examples is in Acts, right, where Ananias and Sapphira, are struck dead basically for giving a lot of what they have, but not all of what they have. So that's like a warning for people who maybe earn to give and make a big pledge, but don't give all of it. But I've heard that interpreted away as, well, they were actually condemned for lying to the local church. Right. So I don't know how you, So, which is very convenient for people who don't give everything away. But easier said than done, right? But what do you think about these spiritual dangers of earning to give?
Yeah, I mean, I think one point to why I don't know if it would be that Zacchaeus when he talks to Jesus, Zacchaeus when he talks to Jesus, I believe he gives away half of what he had, which is not all of what he had, and presumably he was wealthy, so he still had some amount of wealth left. That's a classic verse that rich people want to use to keep their stuff. So that's just one point there. Yeah, I don't
Is
know.
that I'll give fourfold of what I owe and up to half
Yeah,
of what I have? Is it like
right,
that verse?
right,
Okay,
right,
yeah.
exactly. But he doesn't give everything, so
He
like
doesn't
he's
give everything.
still, I think there's some room. Yeah, I don't know. I think it is a real temptation. Like for me personally, if my salary were to be cut in 2/3, I would be sad, and I would be sad primarily because now I'm making less money, and that's like just that fact gives me joy. So that is almost certainly sin. And like I also would be sad because I can't do as much with my money, and I think since going to India, I've made a commitment to be more radical with my money. But that is, I think, the biggest danger is our society places a high. Money is an idol, I guess, obviously, but it's not. It's less, I think, the money itself that's the idol, at least in my experience and in this culture. But like the ability to make the money, it's like, oh, this guy's rich, like he must be cool. Like it's like that money gives you some type of status signal. Um, like I remember
Yeah.
reading, this is just some random post on Reddit, but I think it signifies this idea where some guy's like hypothesizing about his high school reunion, and he talks about the nerd getting out of like a $200,000 Bentley and like being in a well dressed suit, and like that's like that can be kind of the hope. It's like, okay, I used to be not as cool, but now I have money, so now I'm cool, and I think that's a real temptation. I think the trust in money, yeah, like I think that's a real thing too. Of this is probably broadly applies to the West, and again, it is a big distinction from India, but like because we have so much, we feel like we don't need God, and having a lot of money just exacerbates that problem. Like it's like, oh, I'm self sufficient. Like I don't really need God. I'm doing things on my own. So I think those are big problems. I think that problem is arguably solved by committing to more radical giving, because like then it forces you. Then you are depending on some sense, at least in a slightly greater sense than you were before. Yeah. So I guess that's what I would say is I think there are real dangers. Arguably, there are real dangers in every career. So, like, let's say you go into a career like teaching, which is lower paid, but you go to benefit other people and you want to have an impact on students. You could put your worth in like, oh, I'm such a good person because of like how I'm helping these students despite my low salary. So I think those temptations are real, but I think they're also just the temptations of someone who works in quantitative finance as a Christian is going to be different than the one who works as a teacher. I don't know if I would say one is necessarily better or worse, but I think one thing I do think is that if you choose to go in a high paying job, you should do that intentionally and have a plan of giving in mind. Like what most people do, and like
Yeah.
what I'm doing going forward. And I actually heard about this from a conference when I was in college. Is like pick a number and give everything above that. Because I think I
Yeah.
alluded to this earlier, but percentages is just fake because that's not how money works. It was actually the group I was part of in college, Christian Union, was a.
Nice.
It's not as big anymore, but it had a conference and there was like a banking talk, like a breakout session, and there was like me
Yeah.
and one other guy there who I guess was going into banking in the Christian space, and so we got to just ask them questions, and that was one of the women there. She was like, "What me and my husband do is we just pick a number and we give everything above that." That I think is like almost
That's what
insane.
Jason Dykstra does. Yeah, because
Yeah,
then it is about how much you keep and not how much you give away. Because you're going to feel better and better as your income goes up, even if you consume more and more. If you just do a percentage, right?
right.
Like
Exactly.
Bill Gates can live on what 10% of his income and be a billionaire, right? So,
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And
I have
that's
a
yeah.
hmm,
That's
yeah,
also
no,
where the woman of the 2 pence comes in, where it's like,
hmm,
it's not. I really think earning to give. I don't. Maybe this puts me in a minority in the EA camp, but I'm much less prescriptive about it. Of it's like I'm a numbers guy, and so when I read scripture and I think about how to love and serve other people and love the least of these and spread the word, I'm like, oh well, the most efficient way for me to do that is to make a bunch of money and give it to 500K and then like have those missionaries spread the word. And I think that's good, and because that's what I believe, I should do that. And in some sense, I think it's true. But I would also think someone who just really cares about like serving the homeless in their city or serving like alcoholics in their city, that's less like effective. But if that's their passion and that's what the Lord has put in their heart, then I think that's where I would go to. Like we're all members of the body and each of us have different
yeah.
functions.
But
So
if you were to do that, would you feel like you were neglecting your talents and the way that God wired you?
I think, yeah, I would. I'm not going to put it out of the question that potentially God could someday day call me
Is
out of
it
this and into something
is it
else.
more that you reserve the right for God to call people to do what God wants them to do, right? And you know that God does that, right? He does it in Scripture. He calls people
Yeah,
to do seemingly crazy things, and we don't want to say like, God's wrong because he's not acting according to my like 21st century
right,
optimization
right,
formula,
exactly.
Yeah. So okay, I know your phone's gonna die any
Yeah,
minute, so
that's
I
fine.
want to yeah, if there's an abrupt stop, that's why. But I want to maybe flag just those other tips for people who want to go into an earning to give career, things they should keep in mind, and then just like some other considerations about how to give well. Yeah, Jason Dykstra talks about that, setting that limit before you start earning money. That seems like a good number. I think he settled on like 60,000 for him
Yeah,
and his family, but they're in rural Michigan, so it's a different number for everybody. It's not a competition, but that involves prayer. That involves getting everyone involved, like getting your family involved, your spouse, and being realistic about what you can commit to and committing early so you don't let that lifestyle creep.
right.
I know Jason Dykstra has this document, which you can DM us if you're interested in this document. I can share it with you, but it's like a guide for avoiding lifestyle creep. It involves like committing when you're in college to what you're going to spend as soon as you leave college, and setting up like regular, actually moving to the right neighborhood. Because if you move to the wrong neighborhood, your peer group is kind of decided for you in a sense, and you're surrounded by all these like high earners, like big rollers, spending a lot of money on the ski vacations. Um, and so that's really important. And being a part of a community like the effective altruism community, where there are people who are like intentionally challenging and encouraging each other to be content with less, where it's kind of normalized, right? That seems like on balance a really good thing. Um, and and yeah, of course, prayer throughout it all, right? And doing it for the right reasons, and not trying to like impress people, but like doing it because you care about stewarding what you have well, and being obedient to Jesus and serving the poor. But anyways, those are some things that come in mind as like really important to consider before earning to give, or
Yeah.
pursuing that path. But what did I miss? What would you add to someone who's maybe like 22 or maybe older and they're thinking of pursuing this path? One
Yeah.
last thing. Jason thought, and I like this, he thought that Christians who are interested in this, before they go all in on earning to give, they need to demonstrate with a few years of their giving that they're actually serious about it. Because one thing some people do is they say they're going to earn to give, and they just never give, right? They just keep earning money. They keep putting it in the bank. They keep investing. I know a lot of Christians who do this, and they give away maybe 10%, even as their income goes to really high brackets. And like, that's like, honestly not that sacrificial if you're like earning six figures, right? And they kind of put it off for later dates. So he thinks that you really need to demonstrate and be honest with yourself within a few years that you actually are giving away serious amounts. And that goes back to making a commitment early, right?
Yeah.
But that self honesty seems like really key. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but I would definitely agree with that. Yeah, I feel like it does. Like, I think I would have been benefited by being more intentional when in. Like, I've kind of over time been like, okay, I'm probably keeping too much and I should give more. And arguably, even now, it's too much and I should do more intentional reflection on that. Um, so yeah, I think I would agree that I think intentionality is just a big thing because again, the temptation is like, oh, I'm giving so much away. And like, at least for me, I'm obviously giving way more than all my coworkers, all my secular coworkers. So it's very easy, and even some Christians, it's very easy to like check that box and be like, oh, I'm a good person or whatever. I'm like doing my duty. But I would hope God loves a cheerful giver, that it's like less about checking the box, it's more about doing something actively. And actually, this is one advice that I would give that I wouldn't have given before coming to India. That going to India was
Mm.
huge for me, and now it's not like, oh, I have to give money to like go save Christians that are like on the
Yeah.
other side of the
You
world.
seem
Now it's
very
like,
cheerful. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
you're always cheerful, but it made you even more joyful. I see.
yeah, because now it's like, wow, this is what my money's going to. Like, this
Mm.
guy is a Christian because of like my donation, and like I hear his testimony of his life being transformed. So that's actually, I think, advice that I would definitely give is the it's very good to give to personal causes. Right, like EA is good, like the straight EA malaria nets EA. That
Yeah,
is
effective altruism using data and evidence to give better.
right.
Yeah.
Like I think that's good, and I do donate to that. But I think it's, you know, maybe it's sin, but it's harder for me to get as excited about that as it is like 500K. And arguably I think 500K is more important because it's bringing people to Jesus. But even aside from that, just having a personal involvement in things I give is good, because then it's less like, oh, I just want to do this and I'm making a ton of money. Oh, and I guess I should give it away. And it's like, no, I'm doing this because I can actually bless this ministry that I care about and I want it to succeed.
Yeah. I think there's this notion among people who think about effectiveness, which is like, don't do the short-term mission trip. Don't waste the money on going yourself. Everybody does that. People don't actually give to things they don't see. But that's where a lot of the impact is. That's where the low overhead is. That's where the low costs are. It's where nobody will go. It's where funding is neglected. Don't do a short-term mission trip where you're not going to help. That's just a learning trip. Like give instead. But you're saying, no, actually going and seeing where I was giving made you like much more excited about giving, and now you want to give more. It's transformed you in at least a small way. Yeah.
Right. Like, I would think that short-term missions, like I wouldn't even really call what I did short-term missions because I didn't really.
It's more like a learning trip, right?
Yeah, I'm very pro learning trip and experiences. Yeah, short-term missions, I think I probably feel similar to everyone else, but again, I think the short-term missions arguably is like, maybe this is too cynical, but it's like a spiritual vacation sometimes. Like some people will just go, to just like a vacation, and it's like kind of the same thing, but in the sense of you're not really doing it for other people, it's kind of for yourself, but it's for yourself in a way where you get to learn more about other people's experiences and struggles, which can give you more empathy.
When do you think people should go? Should they go after they're already giving to something they've determined? And effectiveness too. Like effectiveness played a big role into where you gave. You wanted to give to where you could fund church planters at a low cost, where there's room for more funding, where there's like a transparent charity. So you gave to 500K. But was it because you were already giving and you just wanted to like do a deeper vet? Because this is like as deeply vetted as like a lot of public source. Like a lot of the GiveWell charities, there's spreadsheets online. There's thousands of people giving to them. It's a less sensitive and so more transparent operation than like 500K, for instance.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think, it's a good question. For me personally, I went to India more for myself, like
more for yourself.
It's just kind of selfishish. Like I just wanted to experience it and see it, and it was actually more when I went. Then I was like, okay, now I've got to give to this. Like I wasn't really giving to it before.
Okay.
Since then, like I'd given a little, but like a one-time thing that wasn't that much. But then after that, I'm like, no, this is it. And it actually coincided with a large pay increase for me. So it's like I have this extra money. What should I do? And now it's like, all right, it's going to 500K. So I think that's I guess it's a good question. I think ultimately I guess it would just depend on for each person. Do you actually have something that you're passionate about? Because that's like, again, that's like my temptation is like, okay, I can give this money, but am I doing it because I really care? Because 500K is great, but it's still like when I think about it, I'm like, would I give like, I don't know, 10 hours of my week to it? I'm like, I don't know if I would, because I don't know. That's more just getting into separate personal things. But I think it as much as possible to care about the ministry and to like feel the impact, because like GiveWell is very well documented, so you can like know the impact, but I think that's very distinct from feeling the impact. And I think the feeling part is pretty important to like help with motivation.
That's good. I like what you said about the teacher example too. Pointing that back up about how like teachers have equal temptations. I wanted to be a teacher for most of my life. And I know one of the reasons I wanted to be a teacher is I'm a big extrovert. And I also care a lot about like what people in my immediate surrounding think of me. And I think I had this idea that like it's kind of embarrassing to say it out loud, but I'd be like the cool teacher, or like I'd be someone who could leave this lasting personal impression in the lives of my students in this kind of way that made sense in my head as a story. When I think back on my life, at the end of my life, I want to be someone who has like a legacy, not necessarily of my own children, but like people that I've affected or really helped in some kind of like intellectual way. And so that drew me quite a lot to teaching. All right, well, that was that with Tommy. His phone died, but wanted to share that a bit about earning to give. We do have a profile on our website that talks about earning to give some Christian advice for pursuing this, and also information about different career pathways and their upper income trajectories. We also have other podcasts with Christians who do earn to give. you can check out our episode with Jason Dykstra, where he goes into the weeds about how to find effective charities to give to. We also are bringing on more Christians who have done this or something similar. As always, if you're interested in getting free one-on-one career advice about earning to give, for instance, we would love to connect with you and connect you to older, wiser Christians who would love to pray with you, for you, also challenge you to not do this for the wrong reasons. Reach out to us. You can sign up for free on our website at christiansforimpact.org.